Horsemanship Remarks Show. Michael's going to be here in a minute or two. But I figured I'd pop in and say hello since I don't want you guys to think we're not here this morning. So tell me what's going on with you. Hopefully, I'll be able to see the chat right here. Yes, live chat. Oh, come on. Why does this not work very well? Anyway, let's see. It's October 2nd, you guys. It was pouring down rain for like 3 days. Oh my gosh. All the horses are in, which is awesome. Have my little system down, so I'm excited for that. So big thing in my world, it has been this wild Mustang, Revlon, right? You guys can check out. I have a new video diary that I'm working on right now, so that's pretty cool. Uh, it's been fun to try to get some clips, but a few different things have kind of I haven't been able to film it all in one take. But our big deal, I have a couple big deals. First of all, I really tested her in the arena. Because and this is what I thought we would talk about today is like sort of the pieces of or how I'm thinking of things. It's kind of interesting because um I've been teaching this horsemanship for a little while now, but this is my first wild horse. So, talking to people is very interesting to hear their ideas about how this all works. And then sort of sorting through my organization, which is not different, but I figured that there were three different pieces. And I hope that Michael um he has the link, so I just want to make sure I don't miss him. But anyway, and you guys that have read the framework, and we've talked a lot about like you know the different pieces of can I invite you? I do not know. Can I invite you? Add as a moderator? No, I don't think so. Is the invitation link not working, Michael? Is that what's happening? Here, let's see. Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me see. It's saying that you're going to have to use that link that I'm just sending you right there. Anyway, I was thinking about like how to explain things. Here we go. Oh, jeez. Oh, come on. Did it work, Michael? Yay. You and I both are like, technology this morning. Did you hear me cussing?
No, I missed the cussing part.
Good.
Unfortunately. No, I tried to use the link you sent me a few days ago and it said this live has already ended, so.
Yeah, you're probably the wrong one. I sent you one in text just a few minutes ago, but anyway, this worked.
Well, that's the one I got to join unless you sent me a second one in text, whatever. Here we are.
Yes, here we are. And I want to say good morning to Julie. Good morning to Katie.
Corey.
Yeah, Corey and Chelsea had such a great weekend. How cool is that with Denali at the butt clinic? You're staring at me as if you don't know what I'm saying.
No, I'm looking at the chat here. Is got some notification over top of it that I don't know how to get rid of, but I'm not going to mess with it and risk screwing up our live.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so good morning to everybody who's joining us this morning. Michael and I are here every Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
8:30 Central. See you next week.
Yeah, no, we're not with the I was like, say it at the top of the show, John. Good morning. So, anyway, it's great to have everybody. Oh, geez, Louise. So I can remove some people, but I have to do it. Susan, good morning. Okay, so Michael, you listened to my voice text this morning.
I listened to the first one. Unfortunately, I honestly tried. I was eating breakfast up until moments before and managing children. So,
well, do you have anything else on your mind, or is that what we should talk about?
let's jump into what you messaged me about.
Okay, just because I do think it's interesting to think of things that way. And we just have an hour this morning, you guys. But jump in and say what you guys are thinking about as well. And if you can like this live, take a second, you guys that are watching, and like the live. It will help us stay relevant, and so you guys can all find us next time. So in regards to Revlon, my 16-month-old Fox Hog HMA California BLM Mustang filly. I was thinking about, I'll just say the three different parts that I have separated in my mind, and you tell me maybe why I'm thinking of these pieces, because I've honestly been shocked in some ways at how these things are obvious to me, and yet um I don't even know what to say about that. So with her, I'm thinking of the relationship, her education, and exposure. Why is that different? I mean, why am I drilling that down so obviously? Is it just the circumstances surrounding the fact that people are viewing me as a rookie because this is my first wild horse? Like I did feather um a mule, you guys, wild mule. But yeah, BLM, Fox Hog. Okay, bye, John. See you later. Um, yeah, Fox Hog, HMAs.
I I think it's funny that you want me to tell you why you're thinking something.
Well, here's the
First
thing.
off,
We have talked so much
mhm,
about the framework, right?
mhm.
And yet drilling it down, especially to a horse that I'm not going to ride right now. Okay, but here's the thing. I think people muddle it all together. This is what appears to be happening to me. And they really are very separate things. And so people are confusing. I say people, but it seems to me that it can get confused, that a person thinks that relationship building is education and or exposure is education. And it's like when I'm doing things with Revlon, you guys, of course I want to put things, our relationship, our culture right away. I want to set that. But that's not different than any other horse that I would do, right? Like I have done, guys, good amount of redoing other horses, horses that have a lot of education. I don't have a lot of experience, hardly any, in doing clean horses, other than probably Frosting was the cleanest one at Bucks. But the culture between us is very important, and of course with one that you can't even touch. And I didn't rope her. Two things, I just have to say it ahead of time, like I didn't rope her, and I feel like I deleted him. Separate but interleaved, yeah, they're integrated into each other. Yes, Julie, yes. So
That that's what I was gonna say. They're distinct components, but have to um, they have to infuse one another or interleave. I was trying not to use interleave again, but uh, like relationship without some understanding, education, and training is only going to get you so far, and it's going to be kind of some unhealthy relationship sort of element, like not knowing where they sit. There's always going to be that, who's in charge here, or do I push on you, or like I don't know, how much can you have a relationship with a horse without having some level of boundaries and have it not be
mhm.
conflict on, even if it's on a very small level, or a conflict that maybe you're like, I don't care, right? I was actually talking to a gal this week, like, you have to decide what's important to you because she's like wanting to get ready for this thing, and she's the one that kind of just shows up riding her horse, and I'm like, okay, well, let's these are your goals, but let's walk it back. We're gonna kind of get off track here, but maybe not. So we'll see once I get to the end of the story how this ties in because it probably does. And I was like, okay, so you can travel around the arena, walk, trot, lope, but if the horse isn't with you and feeling back to you, kind of tied in, probably, I mean, we could call that a sense, there's an element of relationship there. There's actually interaction and conversation. And okay, now you're holding the horse back. He's a very energetic horse, very willing to go horse, so no problem there. But you run him out the front of the rectangle, and then you're holding him back. Well, and I'm trying to say, like, let's get him to calm down and go without you having to hold him. And she's kind of like, this is weird, like I'm fine with him being kind of a little bit jacked up. And I was like, okay, so let's just say, for experiment's sake, or for the sake of conversation, like, you don't mind that, right? And you kinda like that feeling, and that's what riding should feel like to you. You like the horse being that energized. Are you wanting to interject with your finger going up like that, or are you telling me to wait?
The cat, no, no, no. You keep talking. The cat is in the dog's bed and the dog is crying.
Oh,
So let me keep talking, please. I'm
okay.
listening.
So, I was telling her, okay, so let's say that is acceptable to you, actually kinda like that feeling, but you don't like the stop you're getting, or you don't like the fact that you're kinda always holding him back a little bit. Like, well, maybe you want to change that. Well, how do we change that outside of now getting him to feel back to you and therefore having him kind of be a little bit more centered and thinking more about sending him forward without him kind of, you know, launching himself out there and just kind of rushing? Because while that might be okay to you, you really don't like the having to pull on him and having him kind of out the front of the rectangle, which those weren't the words she would have used, but something we talked about yesterday. So it's like, if that is unacceptable to you, that is something you want to change. Well, let's walk it back. Can you change that without changing this? And so it was a little bit more in the realm of horse training, but it was also down to, the level of, is there a conversation going here, or are you just riding the horse, right? Are you just steering the horse, you just piloting the horse, and how does the horse feel about it? And she'd never thought about any of that, really. I mean, not in any detail. Maybe like, I want my horse to like me, not be afraid of me, you know
That's it.
my
That is
horse is my friend. She might have even said those things, but not considering the horse in the you know way we think of it, the way we talk about it.
right. That's
No,
exactly.
and that's not to dismiss her in any way. Like, that's great
Exactly.
that she's here asking those questions, hearing what I'm saying and considering it, and you know and giving it some thought. That's awesome. That's right on. But it's not something that has been a consideration in how she's interacted with her horse, even though she loves her horse and is good to her horse. You know, and I think that's very, very common. Very common. The horse is appreciated, the horse is valued, but the horse is also like content and whatever when you're going around, and has even become on a level content and understanding their job, but they're a little bit jacked up and they're certainly not calm and centered in doing their job. But that doesn't mean the person doesn't appreciate them on some level. It doesn't mean there isn't a relationship on some level. The horse might really like them, meet them at the gate, the whole thing. But it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more than that. So I don't know.
Well,
It's pretty
I guess
wild what the horse like kind of can tolerate, kind of puts up with, kind of goes, well, maybe the horse is going like, this isn't great. Like, you're kind of pulling on me. I'm not really understanding. I'm being but I'm kind of jazzed about going around these barrels and like ripping it through the arena. So I'll put up with some of that, you know?
You're
Eh,
scary this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
She can
I don't
explain
know.
to us in regards to that. Yeah. So Michael, this is a great point because that is exactly partially what that I've been thinking about overnight is because some of what you just said is relationship. So,
Mhm.
for instance, one thing I've noticed, it's pretty wild with the horses that pull away, is particularly the Mustangs that pull away from the person. Um, I'm surprised at that, honestly. Um, and if your horse is selling out on you, in my opinion, something is wrong with the relationship. Like you do not have the kind of relationship that like I'm talking about if the horse is going to sell out. Like Pat taught us like however long ago, a fucking million years ago, you need to be the horse's icon of safety. They should not be rushing away from you. Okay, but a horse could also learn as an intellectual item that they should pull away, right? So there's two different reasons. So same thing, horse running out the rectangle when you're riding, that could be because they're like trying to get away from you. Same thing if they want to buck you off, same whatever. But also, it could become an intellectual item of like, oh, this is just how I go. This is just how we operate. So, same thing, a jacked up kind of feeling or a braced up kind of feeling. Like the horse might be like braced up or jacked up because they're upset because they don't have a good relationship, like a good feeling, or this could even go into the exposure element because the three things I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
you guys, is relationship, education, and exposure. They're not the same. This is one of my first points, is it's not the same. Yes, Julie, in my view, of course, they weave in and out, but what's interesting is with the wild one that maybe doesn't start friendly. Like, is Michelle here this morning? I don't know if she's here this morning, but she's raising a baby or whatever. The baby's friendly. Like you have a relationship with the baby already, right? So things do kind of go in order is all I'm sort of saying, in terms of separating those two. So yes, they wind together, but there's also an order of things. um anyway, so you know what I'm saying, Michael? The same behavior could either be an intellectual item or a relationship item.
Yeah. Uh, so another example is a horse I have in that's really bad about her hind legs. May have mentioned her before, but particularly the right hind. Rather than just pulling it away, she has learned intellectual item, learned behavior. Started probably with a measure of concern. The relationship was probably good, but in other words, she was raised, they were friendly, whatever. But it came to picking up the hind leg, and it might have been on the initial a reaction, questioning the relationship. I'm not so sure about what you're doing there. You're not helping me through it. So I react and then I get away. Do that a few times. Pretty soon, the way to avoid that uncomfortable situation is to jerk away. Time goes along, they try to address it. They address it in a way that allows the horse to continue to get away, but then they try harder. And now we have a horse that will, like, literally try to take you out with her right hind leg, not just pull it away or not just swing it and kick. She hooks and tries to basically grab you if you go
Oh, yeah, you
to,
were saying.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, that's another example of like a relationship component.
Yeah.
e- Even the relationship component being there, education coming in, that you wouldn't even say, I mean, I guess some people would say the relationship wasn't strong enough to do that, right? You
Yep.
need more relationship. Okay, you have to educate the horse, even
Yeah,
if the horse is scared.
that's right.
The horse has to trust you, but then you have to go in there with some feel and a mind toward education for the horse to continue to trust the relationship in that instance. If not, then, like you said, it can be the horse either kind of not trusting you and therefore responding, and then it can transition into, which it definitely has with her, a learned behavior. So she's been taught to do it at this point.
And
But
so
at
so I
that, it's much better now.
yay. That's good. And we certainly can obviously counter condition or counter educate or create replacement behaviors and create a relationship and create some latitude and all of that. But it's what's interesting with the horse that doesn't know anything is I guess, and once again, it's pretty interesting how many people are dismissive of how I'm thinking of this. But and maybe I am crazy because there's people that have trained hundreds of Mustangs. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, that's the last thing I want my horse to know. Like, and
Yeah.
that's not how I want them to do it. This is a good for instance. So, um, Revlon is really good about letting me pick up her feet. What I mean by that is, first of all, she has a great mind. Everyone's going to say that. Oh yeah, but she has such a great mind. Oh yeah, so anything good is going to be dismissed as the fact, but whatever, it doesn't matter because it so easily can be wrecked, which is my next point. So here's the thing. She knows, but I think we should flesh out the three different things just a little bit. But let's just take this really quick because it's like she knows the intellectual item. She knows how to pick up all four in a nice way, in a really nice way. She does not even know to brace. She does not even know to lose her balance. She does not even, right? Now, she has not been exposed to other people doing it yet, which is an exposure item. But the last thing I want to do at this point, and of course, how do we get to that where she could pick up, where she understood intellectually how I want her to do it? Well, she had to trust me. Hello, she had to let me hold to her and touch her and, stay organized, stay balanced. Okay, so she has to believe in me. That's the thing. And the relationship is not just like, oh, they'll let me pet him and groom him or whatever. That's good. And that is part of the relationship. They take food out of my hand or whatever. But there are other components to it, Michael. That's what I was a little bit trying to put my finger on. Is there's more to the relationship than just do they like me? And one of those things that is like the culture of, do you believe in me when I say, which means I can't let her down. I can't just be like, well, I hope this works out. It'll be fine. It's like, oh my God, I'm trying to preserve the thing that will cause my horse to be able to get through anything.
So let's just, for a moment, you can imagine the situation I'm thinking about, but I'm not going to state publicly here. But safety being a very important word here. Are you going to be safe with me? And if she feels safe all the way along and then suddenly doesn't feel safe because of something you did, something someone else did, that can
Environment,
kind of,
a
yeah,
happenstance.
yeah, can kind of screw the whole deal. And whatever learning might have been available in a situation where she felt safe and felt open and
Yeah, open is a good.
understood,
Mm.
all that can close as she becomes skeptical or literally, and I think these are words you said, no longer believes in you that she is safe with you.
And that I can be like, I can introduce her to things. I can show her how to feel better. I
Yeah.
can I won't expose her to the point where she can't cope and has to save herself. You know that every man for himself syndrome, which is what horses are doing when they're trying to buck you off, when they're pulling away from you. That's the save yourself moment, you know? And a horse of course is a horse of course, a wild
Horse
horse is going to whatever degree, some a lot, some not that much, are going to naturally think I have to save myself, you know?
Mhm.
And so that is a big part of the context, is that I'm not going to put you in a situation that you can't cope with. If it scares you or if you're not used to it or whatever, I hopefully will have taught you enough intellectual items that when I try to help you, you're going to know how it works. And
Mhm.
also, you're going to think, okay, what should I do? You know,
Mhm.
and so yesterday, she was not going to let my farrier pick her feet up, not even close, you know. And it was one of these things where it's like this, and I'm like, okay, never mind. Because like the last thing I'm going to do is take her from this, you know, to like, it's fine if you start this way when your new stranger tries to pick her, but you have to end this way, obviously, right? But as she's looking at me like this, oh, here's another funny thing, Michael. So my horse is looking at me like as she's doing this. Meanwhile, I'm getting the lecture about how you're not supposed to look the horse in the eye, while my horse is like, "Mom." Okay. I don't know. I'm obviously doing this totally differently than what people, and yet, whatever, I guess they're getting results that they're happy with. So it's a funny thing. But the knowledge, or what am I trying to say? The experience that stacks up over with, first of all, I'm concerned about you. You know, that would be relationship, right? I'm concerned about you. Okay, now I'm going to start to trust you for whatever reason, right? Then I'm going to build some affinity towards you. Then I'm going to start to believe that you can teach me things, that I get to move my own body, that I'm never going to prioritize the thing versus how I'm thinking of it. I'm never going to take away, your ability to think through things. I'm going to help you so you can believe in me, right? Well, those are so much more than, and they're so easy to upset, I guess, at a certain point. Yeah, that's
So
right.
that I was just thinking, like,
I have to go turn an alarm off, so keep talking.
what the hell do you got an alarm on for? Um, and that's what I was thinking. Like, how when you say they're so easy to upset, like, this is such a not as straightforward as it sounds. Relationship, education, exposure. To particularly those components of like that you just listed, which I won't be able to list right back to you, but initial trusting you, and then you know moving all the way into I can teach you something, and
I can help
where
you.
yeah, I can help you, and then we can learn things, and you have agency and all that. I'm never going to make the thing more important, the movement, the you know response more important than the thought and the conversation that gets us to you doing the thing. And I just, as you're saying that, it's like I wonder what percentage of interactions that horses have with people, like not even how many horses experience that or how many people present it that way, but the number of interactions horses have with people that meet those criteria, right? Like so small, because it is so easy, even as big as they are, to just pull them and push them around, even if it's not them, wrestling and fighting with them, to have them not thinking and just responding because the rope is pulling on them, and responding because you're pushing on their chest to back them up, or you know, and they can learn stuff that way. But it's a different thing when you are mindful of all of the pieces in that process, from, like you say, clean horse, or even in a horse that's new to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind
Mm.
of a restart, and the horse is going, well, you're different, where do you fit? And they make some assumptions context wise. You have two legs, you're here with a flag, you're throwing a saddle on me, but you are different, you're presenting yourself different. Go back to the trust, the relationship. I can help you. There are doors. The doors are, in closing them, are supportive, even though it's a little hard right now for you to figure, where am I supposed to be? All of that done in such a way that, and describing it. And this is where I think people are like, well, why are you in the weeds like this? And breaking it down. Because I think there are lots of people, relatively so, there are people who can do quite incredible things with the horse, and the horse feel good about it, and the horse be learning, and the horse feel safe, and the horse be moving constantly toward where you're directing me. I feel safe, and you're exposing me in a way that is not, they can do that whole thing, but wouldn't, you know stop and describe it in the list that you just spelled out. But if you were to watch a video of that person, or watch them live and have a little voiceover where you're like, what I see happening here is, and you can describe it in those, points. Right here, we're seeing exposure. The horse is now buying into what they're saying. They have the relationship going. The horse is looking for them for the answers. Oh, now the horse is bought in. Now they're learning things, but the horse still has agency. They're setting up. The horse finds it rather than the horse being made to do it. There's like back and forth communication going here. The horse is thinking, the horse is acting, rather than they're just getting the horse. But they're not, like, even if you mic them up, they're probably not going to be saying it in the way
Yeah.
you just broke it down. Or they might, to some level. Like, you think of an event like Road to the Horse, that's kind of what the trainers are going to commentate on what they're doing, a little bit differently than the way you just described it. So,
Mm. Well, yeah, it's very interesting. It sort of comes from having to defend my position quite a bit, which is surprising to me, honestly. I'm like, huh. I mean, I don't know. Very, very interesting. Chelsea said, there are many onion layers to trust, and Ollie didn't trust my ask wouldn't take her balance away. She had to protect herself. Keying in on timing and balance has skyrocketed our trust and relationship. Is it funny that you say that, just because one of the things that makes horses feel good is for them to be
mhm,
balanced and turned loose, right? And so, well, one of the things I was just noticing yesterday that nobody else seemed to care about in the situation was, the horse on all 4 feet and turned loose over her top line. Like, that is so important to start with and finish with. Whatever happens in between is fine. But, how long does it take if your horse starts here, right? Let's say, Chelsea, 25% on each foot, and whatever, 1/100th all the way to their top line, from their tail. Okay, so let's say they start here. Well, the more you do this, well, at which point, which is inevitable, at which point is it going to be, bye? There is a point, where it's going to go from being on all 4 feet and off they go. And then guess what? Your horse knows something they didn't know before. And the recklessness to which people are willing to risk a horse learning something that they don't need to know is shocking to me. Just because, and this could certainly, I'm not saying that this is that the way I'm thinking of it is even the best way. I don't know. Um but it but the possibilities. So I said to Kip last night, the possibilities with this horse, specifically, let's just take Revlon. I felt the same way about Feather too. The and Flower. I'm thinking my way through Flower too. But the possibilities, the cool possibilities that I don't get in all the horses, that I've been developing for 10 years, that I'm learning along the way. So the possibilities of what is possible, the possibilities of what is possible with Revlon, like, oh my gosh, that's not something you come across every day. So being super careful to be a good steward of that, and also just selfishly, I want those things. So I'm not going to risk it. I can't get it back. And I'm pretty sure I know the order of everything to put in there. So long as I get lucky and nothing like accidentally happens that is going to mess it up, why wouldn't I just go in order? So shall we talk about the other two components,
Well, go in order.
or gather the ingredients that I need? And
Uh,
this is why I'm referring to them in three different pieces, because I think I'm getting a lot of advice about the way it should be done, and then I stare back at, and I'm like, but what about, I'm thinking of all these different pieces
I
that you
think,
skip. I'm like, what?
well, two things in turn when you say the order on two sides. One, not not having the confidence in the order, or just the not even the confidence in the order, but the
The definition.
the experience of the value of the order, and not skipping things, not.
It's just usually we're referring to curriculum items. I guess that's part of the problem, is we're referring to curriculum items usually when we talk about order,
Yeah,
which is very important.
yeah.
But
So you're saying in this case something other than just curriculum items in the
that
order of the education curriculum items, along with the relationship, along with the exposure. Yeah.
that's
And then I think of someone like Gary or others who I have in mind as like very good examples of all of these things happening, even if they wouldn't narrate it that way, um, in a very beautiful, artful way that is providing the horse agency and tons of exposure along the way at a very rapid rate that is maybe a little bit whoa for the horse, but not overwhelming to the point where the horse is not feeling safe and cannot learn. It's all fairly seamlessly running forward. On that side of things, it can look like, if you're looking for order or structure or hitting bases, it can look like, well, this is just, there's no order to this. They're just doing, well, that's kind of an innate, and maybe not an innate, but a learned experience that just has a flow to it that works with them, that they've found works with the horse, that isn't as linear appearing, but they're still hitting all the bases. Kind of like you're describing, that it's not one and then the other. Like the order has them all integrated, hitting on each of the parts along the way, but not missing any or focusing so much on relationship or not getting, education, or focusing so much on education, but we're not thinking about how the horse feels about us. Like that's all coming together for them, even if it doesn't, even if you couldn't write down this is the order it should happen in, which you'd be inclined to do, right? Try to write down this is the order. I- it's happening very organically there, given their experience and their attitude toward the horse and the whole 9 yards. So,
Yeah, you know what I think about? Well, like when I think about Gary with a cold, this is follow me, you guys, on this one. So, um, Cinderella's fairy godmother, she pulls out the wand and like waves around the ingredients, and then ta-da! You know, pumpkins and a coachman and a coach and the dress, and you're like, what the hell? But and it's all sparkly stuff, which is all the ingredients, and they just go like this. You're like,
kaboom!
yeah, but it's like it's not like they just scatter it all to the wind.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this. I had Revlon in the arena for the first time. Um, Loose. It's going to catch her in there. Um, and I was kind of videoing, so I was a little bit talking to the people. Although I don't know that that is ever going to be something I can really share, but I'll just tell you guys about it. But the thing is, it's like you know what, this is going to be one of the most valuable things she can learn about the relationship and about um an intellectual item. This is how you hook on. This is how you stand square. This is blah blah blah. But the caveat is you have to hang in there till it works. And that's one of the things Gary is so good about is where you think of like he just has all these ingredients and then they all just come together. But if he left it, well, the ingredients were just like molecules, floating around. You got to make something out of it before you leave the deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was talking to Buck the other day, and I don't know, making some comments and a little bit chuckling, between the two of us. And I'm like, look, these things just come to me. I'm not purposefully trying to parse them out like this. Like, oh, it's like they're just that's how it all comes to me. Like
Oh,
it's
that's how your brain thinks about it,
yeah, yeah.
organizes it. Yeah.
And then it's kind of interesting because Revlon's feet are long and not horrible at all, but but they're they need to be trimmed, right? And I was talking to Gary about a little bit where I am in her development, meaning that she can pick up all 4 feet for me, but should I just like force her to do it with the farrier? And he went on a rant about how dumb that would be. Her feet are fine, don't even worry about not that you shouldn't like be heading towards that, but her feet are nowhere near so bad that they're going to be harmful to her.
Hmm.
But she's so balanced right now. And if you mess with the balance, that's way harder to recover than just trimming her feet. So it was very interesting how vehement he was about that. Um, a lot of times Gary will be the one to trim their feet first. So, yeah, all those different ingredients. But and we've talked about this before, like at Gary's, where I would untie colts from the high line that he had worked with for the first time, and I was so amazed that I could lead them on foot from the high line to the field and turn them loose because they knew what to do, but they were not gentle at all. And which is that's not,
Makes sense.
yeah, nothing wrong with that, but it was so educational for me to feel the difference between the education and the relationship. Especially because I had come from a world where You definitely had more relationship than education in a
Mhm.
lot of times. But this is what's causing me to think about more details in the relationship other than just, do you like me because I feed you?
Mhm.
And even maybe do you like me because I scratch you?
Yeah.
There's more to it. So you want me to just list these out just real quick what I wrote down in my notebook?
Yes, but I'll comment on your saying, well, this is just like these just thoughts come to me, and this is the way I think about it when Buck or whoever's like, you're in the weeds. Like this is just pointless to be thinking about it in these terms. Like, why are we parsing it out in this way? And like you just described there, you came from this world, you're witnessing this world, and the impact it has on the horse, and a little bit saying the order's a little different, approaching it this way, but the order is tying together all the components. Any case, you're seeing it the way you see it, parsing it out the way your brain is just kind of like it's coming to you, the pieces fitting together and a way to describe the pieces because of the exposure you've had, starting from your starting point, right? Let's just say the first 5 years, and then the next 5 years, and then the next 5 years, and then the next 10 years, all of that layering in, your experience is different than the next person's experience, which is going to cause you to see it and describe it a different way than those who, like Buck, you know, started out riding rank horses on ranches and then got around some, like the next 5 years for him was another influence that gave him a perspective. So we're all unique in the way we've come to wherever we are, and that's going to prompt a different way of expressing and thinking about it, that if we're willing to talk to one another can be enriching. So
You've had a lot of really good one-liners, you guys, don't you think, from Michael? Like, I'll have to listen. You've had a couple like killer ones. I know you're not even realizing it, but
I'm
um
not,
can be enriching is a great one. Not is
if
enriching.
we're willing to talk to one another.
Can you read Corey's comment? Because that's actually really important. And it's
Corey said, there is not an order for those three components since they're ideally integrated. But if you keep them balanced, you can keep going into more levels of depth, right? I would say for sure. Integrated, but balanced, not one prioritized without the others coming along. And that's, I think, what you're saying in terms
I,
of the order.
that's not what I'm saying.
Well, the order of things is, maybe I'm on page with Corey, but the order of things is not relationship, 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 and the horse is learning to lean away from you, and that becomes an intellectual item. So that is an imbalance in the order of things or the interleaving of the different parts that's going to bring the horse forward in all three areas. Apparently, I'm thinking of it like Corey is, and you're not, based on the expression on your face.
Yes, because I mean, you guys aren't wrong, obviously, but I am thinking of it differently. I definitely am. So help me to sort this out, you guys. Okay, so here's the thing. The relationship is the most important thing. And remember, we have components to that. It's not just do you like me? There's a whole bunch of other things that are important, right? Um affinity would be a very important word to me, but also the culture. Anyway, I need to have the relationship to set the culture. And you guys have seen me do this. We've talked about this a million times when I help you with your horses at a clinic, or like when I get a new horse that's had a lot of experience. It doesn't matter. The relationship and the context is the most important thing. Then we can talk about educational items. And of course, there's going to be an overlap there, right? Like there's a weaving at the edges, but one comes before the other. It I mean, this is just the way
Okay,
I'm thinking.
yes, one comes before another, and that is
No, no, Michael. No, no. Michael. Oh no, we can't I can't hear you.
okay. You there?
Yeah.
um One comes before the other, and like this is priority. We don't just jump right into education without having established some of that, but we also don't.
And now he's gone.
And this is all where like this has to happen for x amount of time without
Yeah, good point.
starting into the education, which is the only way you're going to take it to the next level of relationship or sustain the relationship and not have it, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's there, but it's also brittle because it's not, you haven't moved into the next level of relationship. And you could list the way your brain broke it out, but I could stumble through breaking it out similarly. um the horse likes me because it's not scared of me and I'm not doing anything, but now we're trying to you know help the horse understand it can trust me through something that it might not. Like a horse that's never had his feet picked up, like can trust me in that situation, can trust me in being exposed to things. Like if we don't start moving into that, there may be some relationship, but it's very brittle. And at any point, that relationship can be harmed
That's
through either a mistake of your own, which it can go backwards so quickly. You can lose that connection and that trust and that feeling safe, either by overexposure or by saying, well, screw it, let's have the farrier do this. And it's just the horse isn't quite prepared for it. Um, or inadvertently, you're not aware of something that is teaching the horse that stepping away from whatever relationship you have is also something that might be necessary, or yeah, might be an option or necessary.
yeah. I guess part of you're saying stepping away from the relationship. I guess what I was just going to say is that
Well,
prioritizing the relationship and the culture and the trust, meaning the belief, is not just random trust, right? I feel like there's a lot even to be encompassed in the word trust. And that comes from experience and education too. So this way we loop back. But what is the priority here? Are we going to
when I,
preserve the
when I say stepping away, not like I don't categorically have a relationship with you anymore, but pushing the exposure or pushing the um not being aware of using the training or entering into the training and education with the
Mhm,
relationship
mhm.
component kind of still integrated in there. When I say leaving, is not just like, well, we don't have a relationship, but now you've pushed me to the point of not trusting, not believing. And so feeling like I should leave, it's an option. Leaving meaning checking out of whatever we're asking, leaning away. And like you said, we're headed here and eventually we're going to go there, right? The mind's going away. Or you know, Kaya
This
with her
that
foot, like we
you know,
had a relationship, but I'm unsure of this. And so I'm leaving, like, give me my foot back because I'm a little worried about it, becomes inevitably, you know, don't touch my foot,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is interesting yesterday. This is, I'm sure it'll tie in somewhere, but it's a little bit different than what we've been talking about. Um, I don't think I told you last week, but maybe I did. With her, one of the big things is bringing her foot forward. She would just rip it back and kick out really strong. And obviously, you can't draw it forward with your hand or even the rope and not have her just smoke the rope through your hand and kick it back. So I put the rope up over the saddle horn.
Oh,
Did I
yeah, you
mention
did.
this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I observed yesterday, because I did it a few days, and then I've done it a couple more days after a few days of not doing it, as I noticed yesterday, and something when you were describing the colt with Gary that is like practically broke but still not gentle, right? Like you
Well,
could go up and lead it. I mean, just like knew what to do. So I noticed yesterday when I was doing picking up her foot, she never did kick out. Like I went to pick up the foot with the rope around the saddle horn, and she never reacted and kind of slung her foot backward and tried to, or did I didn't have it tied onto the saddle horn, so just with one wrap, she still was able to kick but not get away, and then I just persist. So yesterday she didn't kick, but it was very much an intimidated, like I can't or shouldn't kick. Kicking is not going to work, but she hadn't turned loose or bought into the fact that this was safe. It was just what I had been doing was like it scared her, right? Because the way I set it up, she was fighting with herself and it was making it worse, her trying to get away. So, but that interesting spot where she's like, I know not to do this because I'm basically just pulling on myself, but I'm not entirely going, this is cool yet, or not yet entirely saying this is cool and I feel safe with this. It was still her being intimidated, and not because I intimidated her. I set up a situation in which she scared the piss out of herself because what she was doing wasn't working, right?
and
Which,
that may be
that
something.
can be like, well, these are just words and, that's semantics, but I wasn't, yeah, whatever.
Well,
I
the
wasn't
thing,
doing it to her.
yeah,
There
but
is a difference, right? If we are trying to break things down and describe them.
yeah, but think about a situation where, let's say, a horse doesn't back up with all 4 feet, and like, let's just say, I would like be like, hey, go back,
Mhm.
and be something where the horse learns, okay, I do have to yield, all 4 feet have to come loose. But there's a moment when they're complying, or they know what to do, like, I am going to go backwards because otherwise she's going to whack me with the rope. But that's not the whole job. That's
Mhm.
that's not
Can't
then
leave it there.
you're 20% in. You need that 20%.
Mhm.
This is not, and sometimes the 80% is going to like roll on through, but and I guess I'm saying those percentages just because I'm putting
So we
it
can,
out
yeah,
judgment.
we can have that whatever your percentage is you want to land on. So let's just say 20%. You can have that first 20% being compliance, tolerance, whatever all else as a necessary first step. But if you see that as the results, right? Or like talking to this gal, like he goes, he stops, like he's obedient. There's my 20%, and that's what I need him to do. Okay, but could it be different? Like, would you want it to be different? Presumably you do. That's why you're here asking me questions. So what is the other 80% and how do we get to that? And from our perspective, like as we're having this conversation, we're going that 20% is like critical,
Mm.
but it doesn't even need to be intimidation or compliance. You can get through that 20% without it being compliance or tolerance, and we can skirt those words, educate through that 20% quite easily if
Depend.
the relationship is there,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and depending on the horse, you
And
know.
what the prior knowledge is.
Mhm.
If the horse has learned, for instance, not to pick up its feet or be, lock up or lunge forward or just bolt away,
Well,
y- then
you may need to start with compliance because the relationship has only gone so far, and then the horse has learned this is the thing to do. Relationship aside does not apply here, or even though we have a relationship, this is the spot where I say no. And then you may have to go through, as I did with Kaya, compliance, like struggle with yourself,
right.
but I mean, tolerating this, being compliant, being obedient, you know, kind of being in this, oh shit, I better not fight and make myself get all jostled around because my leg's tied to the saddle horn essentially now, or dallied to the saddle horn. And there's a measure of her going through a period of intimidation because of the learned behavior and her prior experience. Oh, and yeah, I mean, it's interesting how many babies there are that are raised, and there's relationship, there's trust, there's all of that, but it so easily rolls into disrespect that rolls into the exact opposite of trust because now the horse is walking all over you and becoming a
And
pig. And that wasn't the case with Kaya,
mhm.
but kind of was. I mean, she'd just apply pressure and she'd go into it. She wasn't trying to be mean spirited about it, but she just learned to kind of walk over anything that was,
And then you can't help them when
yeah.
that's the thing is then you can't support them, and then you can't have the relationship that you're dreaming of, which is totally, I've been there, where a relationship has gotten me, or some version of that, some measure, we could say, of the relationship has gotten me so far, but when the chips were down,
Hmm.
I hadn't completed that section of the relationship where, look, when the chips are down, you listen to me because I'm going to help you out of trouble. And you can only do that if the horse has enough education, proper education, that you can constructively support them through a situation, which is why that's when exposure is the last thing. Even though just walking into the pen with a wild horse for the first time is exposure. So you could say yes, but when we're talking about, now I want my horse to walk through the noodles and I want my horse to like go to a new place, and it's like these are obviously exposure items that you're going to get to after you've developed an education that helps you to move their body parts around constructively on a feel, turned loose promptly, and then winding back before that, you have developed a relationship so that they can learn these items. Give you a quick example, and you're probably going to have to go pretty quick.
I do have to go.
But a quick example, I think maybe I said it in the voice memo, but I'll just tell the people is Revlon is learning her 4/4 yield, her 360 4/4 yield from the ground, and she's pretty into it because it is a definite intellectual item that she's learning that in relationship to me is not just a natural thing. Like, you could teach a horse to go, they're naturally going to go away from you. You can teach them to roll the hindquarters, that's a natural thing.
Uh-oh. Where'd you go? Now
All right.
I'm gonna. Oh, there you are.
Call me, they know I'm doing the show, but they forget. um some of those are natural things. Even drawing your horse forward is a natural item. But doing a 360-degree turn away from you with all 4 feet that are doing what they should be doing is an intellectual item. So once she figured that out, that was now a relationship thing. She's like, "Oh, you have stuff to teach me. That is valuable." Okay, that's a relationship thing. Then we have the educational thing, which is like, "Look, this is the thing that you do." So then, I was having her do it in the arena again. Meanwhile, talking to you guys all about it, but my microphone wasn't working. Um, and there was a point where, of course, she's like, oh, we're gonna do the hindquarter yield and then go into the turn, so she was missing the qualities in the hindquarter yield, 'cause her mind was just going to the next thing. So it was so fun, it was so cool, so satisfying to be able to be like, okay, but wait, hold on, let me explain this quality to you. Just watch me here for a second, like, and and her, just that was just part of it, that she was like, what now? Hold on. Okay. Yes. Yes. All right. And then you know what I mean? Like, there's so much to just being able to do that, that she knew that there were going to be qualities within the thing.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing in and of itself. You're going to be a benefit. I should trust you. You have things that are details that I might not know. Like, those are all cultural items. Then you have the actual thing I'm trying to show you, which is
So I do have to go, but super quick, back to Corey's comment before the last, which, yeah, let's go back to that one. There is not an order for those three components since they're ideally integrated. Okay, so yes, that was not how I was thinking about it. Is that the part you were saying that's not quite how you think about it? Okay. If you keep them balanced. See, I read it as there is an order for those three components, yet they're ideally integrated, or since they are ideally integrated, but you keep them balanced. So, okay, I misread Corey's comment, and I think in talking about it, we've nuanced our or your way of that you've been thinking about it, describing that we've been talking about over against that there is an order, but they are integrated, and the order is kind of flowing in and around through them, not getting carried away with one and then limiting yourself because you're not bringing it into the other. Anyway, Corey's next comment. Emma, I see what you mean with a relationship first, especially at the very beginning. Then the other two components come along more smoothly because the strong relationship helps those things work.
Mhm.
Thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes. And really, the three need to the keeping. I guess the thing is, it's sort of order, but that's very important, that you don't just go randomly to exposing your horse to so many things, or randomly to educational items without, thinking, okay, but this is a culture I want to set before I teach you anything very specific. We need
Mm.
to set the culture, and I'm not going to betray you. Now, I have all these curriculum items that I want you to know. And hopefully, I, as the human, know them, know what order they're in, know what ingredients add up to the next thing, blah, 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 hopefully. And I'm going to show you these things, horsey. And guess what? Every curriculum item is a benefit to you. So all along, you're going to be like, oh, cool, 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 right? Okay. And then you start exposing them to things that might be challenging to them. Obviously, especially a wild horse never having seen any of this, it's not that big of a deal. This is my supposition. We'll see. Um, that the horse learns to get to ride in the trailer and to go on an obstacle course, and to be in amongst other people, so long as you set them up for success where they can trust you and know enough. And I guess that's part of it, is like, there's so many times that we run into people, and I have had this experience, you guys. I have had the experience of having to wind my way backwards and reorganize everything so that it all fits. So I'm not just saying that I know all of this, but then we continuously run into situations where you're like, oh, the horse has no clue of, like, this specific physical thing. They don't know how to do that. For instance, they don't know how to go out and around with quality and yield the hindquarters and roll backwards. Like, well, good luck trying to help him when he's stressed out and bouncing off of the environment.
Yeah.
And we could apply all of this to riding, right? You'd be like, oh, my canter departs. Oh, I cannot get my horse to do my canter departs. It's like, well, how's this? How's this? How's this? How's this? And it's like, Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I got to go back and fix all those things, or put things in that aren't even there.
Yeah.
I have been there. I have been that person that has that has had to organize those things. And so that's why, and then along the way, and it just makes me frantic. That's why we go back to Feather and John and him taking care of all that and keeping the priorities, the relationship first, then the intellectual items, then the exposure in order, and not burning down the relationship because, or then getting to exposure and not attending to the intellectual items with quality.
Mhm.
Like, so you can burn so much of what you've built by not thinking about those things in order. Not Buck Brannaman or Gary Bailey doesn't have to think about those things in order unless they want to talk to us.
How inconvenient to have to think of the order.
Seriously. And if someone was trying to like interrogate them about how they were doing it, they'd be like, "Where's the coffee shop?" Like Buck says, like, "Let's go have Starbucks instead of talking about this stuff." Um. Anyways, that's basically. Did you have anything else about that?
No,
So
my brain has moved on to the next thing because I do have to go.
got it. Okay. Well, I'm going to stay on just for a minute so I can read you guys what's going on in here. So, Michael Sparling, thank you for being here today, even though you have a lot going on. And we'll talk more about it, you and me. It's a very interesting deal.
All right. See you next week,
Uh,
8:30 Central.
yeah, 8:30 Central. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye. I wonder if it's going to show me. I wonder if it's going to show me your comments now that it's just me, you guys. Because I have my notebook here from this morning, and I want to put this together in a blog, is what I'm thinking. Um, a little bit for myself. This is one of the things I do in the morning after sleeping on it all. It's like I start to like parse it out so that it doesn't just be like a cloud. Okay, so the relationship. So we're talking about relationship, education, and exposure, right? So the relationship to me, um, is about culture and affinity, right? So we are friends. That's like the first one, right? And then contextualizing all the pieces. So we're friends first. There's puzzles with answers. You get to move your own body. To me, that's a relationship thing. Like, that's a cultural thing. I respect you enough that I'm gonna get my idea across to you, and then you get to do that. That's like, I really feel like that's an intellect, or that's a relationship item. So, and then you need to trust me. You can believe in me. I'm not going to sell you out for my ego, or because I want to, force you to do X, Y, Z. I'm not going to sell you out. I'm going to take the time to educate you so that I don't have to sell you out. Right. And then that turns into like a mutual respect and admiration. So they have to allow you to have the ideas, and then we're going to let them do it. So, in other words, pretty simple. Ray Hunt, Corey and I were talking about this the other day. Ray Hunt's copyright on his book is like, 1976 or 8 or something. And he's the one who said, set it up and let the horse find it. So, part of the relationship, in my view, is that the cultural element is I get to set it up, you get to find it, right? And then, of course, part of what gets part of the benefit of that is now we have latitude, you know. So um, that's something that horses come to in varying degrees. I think, especially, let's talk about wild mustangs. Out of a holding pen, it's like some are gonna naturally like want to believe in you or just be apt to do that. And then some are going to be super skeptical. I think it's going to be really interesting with Flower because she's very, very naturally skeptical. But even as I'm showing her things, and I want to be able to, obviously, we think about like the friendly game is one of the first things. Well, that's a relationship issue. That's also an educational item. But which am I going to prioritize, right? So we'll see how that shapes up. Then the training, like the horse training. You guys have heard me say that so many times because people do talk about the relationship, which is the bottom of the pyramid. And that is important. But now we also have to have horse training, aka education. And so these are intellectual items, actual curriculum pieces, putting in the education scaffolding. In other words, stand still and relax. You don't have to be scared of me or my toys. You have to yield from steady pressure, and you have to yield from driving pressure. I mean, that's the scaffolding, right? And then you obviously need to know what order the curriculum is, and everybody's going to have a different curriculum, a different system of aids. It doesn't really matter what it is, so long as okay, I want my horse to know this, and this, and they need to know this, and this before we get to the third component, which is exposure. But in the intellectual component, in the horse training component, that's where I would put not just the actual how are you moving your, like, what are you doing with your body, but how are you doing it? Everything from standing still to backing up to jumping over something to turning loose, like accepting a bit, like whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. There are qualities within which you do it that relate to the intellectual item. So to me, that would be horse training, right? Um, so then we get to the exposure, and that's where the way that I want to do it is to use the horse's belief in me and their education to help them to feel good about all the new things that they're being exposed to. And that's where, we want to do a good job of taking our horse around in Humansville so that they know how to operate within it. And some horses are going to know that naturally. Let's say, imagine a baby horse that was born on a farm, either a big farm or a little farm, and been handled since birth, and had their feet trimmed all along and maybe gone with their mom to the new breeding farm, or, to get bred or whatever. Like there could be a lot of Humansville experience in a little baby horse. Also, if you adopt a 6-year-old Mustang out of the holding pens that's never seen a showgrounds before, that's obviously going to be, totally different. But if we don't have some trust and culture, then we won't have a way to apply the educational items to our satisfaction, which means the horse will have to learn how to cope with the environment through repeats, which is not all bad, I guess, but is something to consider. How are we exposing the horse in a way that every single thing we layer on is not only preserving our relationship, but improving it, and not only preserving their education, but improving it. Like that's the dream. You guys follow me? So I think, I don't know. That is certainly how I wanted to, or that's what came out of me organizing my thoughts. Does any you guys have any ideas on that, or comments you want to make on that before I say goodbye for today? I'm not going to have a chance to do much, but it's funny because these are not new things or different than what we do with the other horses. Either redos or, colts that grow up in Humansville or whatever. It really is, as far as I can tell, it's the same. It's just there's an opportunity to have it be super clean, right? Like you get something fresh out of the pen that hasn't had anything done with it, or like in Revlon's case, she had a few things done, and nothing bad, very minimal, but she had a few things done with her, and none of it was working against me. But I was very careful about making sure that I had these pieces in order so that nothing got wobbly, right? So this is the thing. In a way, the stakes are higher because you have the potential to have something really amazing that maybe you don't get the opportunity for. And then I would imagine too, like let's say I do Revlon now, then in 5 years, I will have another opportunity that will be different because hopefully I'll be different. Right. But for right now, I guess I'm just aware of what's at stake here. And not that things are going to really go badly, but I'm excited. So, let's see, Sarah, this great recap. I'm gonna have to listen again to make sure I pick up all the nuggets. Yeah, and I think I have enough notes here to come up with a blog sooner rather than later. So you guys can go to emmadailykleinblog.com and sign up for my little alerts. I think I should be able to pull that off in the next couple days, just for myself too, so that I don't have to go through a whole show trying to like lay it out. But anyway, yeah, the stakes are high because of the unique opportunity to not mess it up. I'm going to mess it up. Like that part's inevitable. But like, how little messing up can I do? Right? And I would definitely say that I have a much better understanding of how to um uh, certainly the intellectual items, I think. And then what additional things are in the relationship. The exposure's a no-brainer. Obviously, you just have to take the time to do it. Um, so anyway, those are my thoughts for today. Perhaps we will talk a little bit more about it. And Michael and I will see you next Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 Central. Thanks for being here, you guys. Have a good week.